The General Hospital recap for Wednesday, August 27th, shows that Nina Reeves threatened Drew Kane would die if he wounded Willow Tate again. Rick Lansing also discovered he was stuck for 30 days, so here's how it all played out. Molly Lansing Davis confronted Christina Corinthos Davis at Alexis Davis's house, revealing she was aware of her sister's payment to Cody Bell to seduce Ava Jerome. Sonny Corinthos interjected, asking Molly about Ada Justine Turner's authority, but Christina appeared glad to get rid of him. Alexis Davis emerged in the basement where Rick was imprisoned and refused to release him. Rick slowly realized that Alexis was involved in the captivity conspiracy. Alexis stated that Rick would be imprisoned there until the treasury bonds matured in 30 days. Rick was free to go after the money was replenished and Ava Jerome turned over the evidence against Christina. However, Alexis felt Rick would not go to the police because they all had dirt on each other. Christina returned Rick's gag to his mouth after texting Alexis. After learning about Drew's restraining order controversy, Sonny told Alexis that Drew would finally get what he deserved. Back with Christina, she paid Rick a visit and tormented him about his situation. At JH, Ava persuaded Lucas Jones to prescribe some sleeping pills to get her through until her next doctor's appointment, but the pills appeared to be intended for Rick. Lucas also learned that Ava and Rick had split up, and he informed Elizabeth Baldwin later. Curtis Ashford visited Portia Robinson's office and informed her about Drew's medical insurance fraud probe into Stella Henry. Meanwhile, Stella spoke with Isaiah Gannon and attempted to remain optimistic about putting the incident behind her. However, the fraud agents arrived to announce Stella's suspension and arrest, causing some chaos. Curtis couldn't reach Alexis, but Jordan Ashford did her best to help in the meantime. Portia witnessed a close encounter between Jordan and Curtis, which she was definitely not pleased with. Stella was eventually escorted to the police station in handcuffs. Curtis finally got in touch with Alexis and informed her that Stella had been arrested. Nina became enraged when she saw Willow sitting for a meeting with Drew at the Port Charles Grill. Nina thought it was a horrible idea to be seen in public with Drew and cautioned Willow that she could lose her children forever. Although Willow needed someone with power to back her up, Nina claimed that Drew's prior efforts had failed. Willow once again blamed Nina for her difficulties, pointing out that Drew claimed she prevented him from confessing their passionate encounters. Willow ultimately believed that Drew was her best chance of facing Michael Corinthos. That's why Willow promised to return to Drew if he reunited her with her children, but only if he fulfilled his word. Willow marched out the door, leaving Nina to scold Drew for filling her mind with more lies. At the chapel, Giovanni Gio Palmieri was lighting a candle for his adoptive mother's birthday when he bumped into Marco Rios, who was also lighting a candle for Natalia Ramirez. After they introduced themselves, Gio convinced Marco that Grandpa Sonny had nothing to do with Natalia's death. After Marco left, Brooke Lynn Quartermain arrived with flowers and planned to light a candle for Camilla Palmieri as well. Although Brooke Lynn wanted to leave and return later, Gio emphasized that today was about his mother and encouraged her to stay. As a result, Brooke Lynn and Gio had what appeared to be a significant breakthrough conversation. Brooke Lynn became sad after Camilla gave Gio the good home she had prayed for, and Gio appeared moved by her emotions. Jen Sidwell presented Lucy Coe evidence of Deception's declining stock price at Windmere, but he promised to invest more in exchange for a larger stake in the company. Lucy wondered what Sidwell was getting out of this now that Deception was failing, but he pretended to be doing it for her rather than his unknown associate. Sidwell also had a private conversation with Marco, who became furious after hearing Gio defend Sonny. Marco pressed Sidwell to utilize his judicial bribery advantage immediately, but Sidwell asked his son to be patient for a bit longer. Marco returned to the Port Charles Grill and eavesdropped on Nina's threats against Drew. "I swear if you hurt my daughter again, I'll see you dead," she said. Drew proposed that Nina be detained for the threat, but she responded that the most dangerous person is someone who has nothing to lose. Marco approached Drew after Nina departed, saying he couldn't help but overhear. Marco thought Drew was blessed to have the solution to what seemed like a significant problem. General Hospital spoilers suggest Marco's betrayal will irritate Sidwell soon, so don't miss out on all the action. According to General Hospital teasers, Drew Quartermain will meet a horrific end shortly. This will delight many fans. The congressman's merciless machinations, which include blackmailing Portia Robinson and turning Stella Henry in, have piled up enemies like never before. Rumor has it that his body will be discovered in a dramatic twist, with suspicion falling on a laundry list of suspects, each with a clear purpose. Michael Corinthos appears to be the leading suspect, but Alexis Davis, Curtis Ashford, Martin Marty Gray, Tracy Quartermain, and Sonny Corinthos all have blood on their hands, metaphorically speaking. Willow Corinthos may even appear guilty, given their recent feud. Outsiders such as Jen Sidwell may become involved if Drew disrupts his intentions. Jason Morgan is out of the country, so he's not to blame, but with so many detractors, who is the true killer? Michael's motive, primary suspect or red herring? Michael's hatred with Drew, which is exacerbated by Drew's romance with Willow, and an attempt to paint him as an addict, makes him appear as guilty as sin. If Michael breaks, especially given the custody battle between Wiley and Amelia Corinthos, he may be the one to take Drew out. But is this too obvious? Given Sonny's waterfront blackmail battle with Drew, Michael may delegate the dirty work to him. In any case, Michael's public threats and access to Corinthos' resources make him the most likely suspect. Ada Justine Turner and Anna Devane may focus on him first, but with alibis potentially tainted by family conflict, will Michael crack or point fingers elsewhere? Alexis had a clear purpose after Drew issued a restraining order to keep her away from Emily Scout Quartermain, and her threats were overheard. What is her alibi? She returned home after the altercation, running into Ava Jerome and Christina Corinthos Davis after Ava clobbered Rick Lansing and left him unconscious on the floor. A scene she can't divulge without exposing additional crimes. Curtis, enraged by Drew's ratting out Stella for fraud and jeopardizing her job, could act in retaliation, or Stella or Trina Robinson may break to protect family honor. Then there's Sidwell, who may eliminate Drew as a problem in his dark plans. With reasons mounting up, the PCPD will have its hands full untangling this tangle. Marty, who was just sacked by Drew for refusing to testify about Michael's assault, may appear jilted and vindictive, his legal career in shambles. Tracy, after months of public Quartermain fights with Drew over family authority, has the resources and motivation to kill him secretly. Sonny, who holds infinite grudges, might order a hit without getting his hands dirty. Who will look the most guilty? Michael is the obvious choice, but Alexis' missing alibi and Curtis' wrath could make it a tough call. To solve this, dates, forensics, and affiliations will all need to be investigated. Will the killer be identified? Or will Drew's death bury Port Charles in suspicion? Keep checking back with us every day for more GH updates and spoilers. Nina's heart was pounding in her chest as she stood in the dimly lighted living room of her apartment, her gaze fixed on Drew. The air between them was charged with tension, an explosive combination of rage, betrayal, and dread. Her voice, normally calm and calculated, shook with a raw edge as she delivered her ultimatum. "If you hurt Willow, Drew, I swear to God, you're a dead man." The words were heavy, each syllable dripping with a mother's intense protectiveness. Drew's normally controlled features flickered with shame, defiance, or both, but he did not answer. He just stood there, hands jammed into his pockets, jaw clenched. Nina wasn't concerned about his quiet. She meant every word. Willow, her daughter, was her entire world, and the notion of anyone, particularly Drew, bringing her misery was intolerable. The stakes were higher than ever before, and Nina was not about to let him off the hook. Nina and Drew's relationship was convoluted, with years of trust and mistrust weaved together. They had once been allies, maybe even friends, but everything changed when Drew became too close to Willow. Nina initially brushed it off. Willow was an adult capable of making her own decisions, and Drew's magnetism was difficult to resist. But charm could cover up a multitude of crimes, and Nina had seen enough of the world to know that individuals like Drew, smooth-talking, ambitious, and always calculating, rarely had good intentions. She'd watched him move through life, always one step ahead, always with a plan. When Willow began raving about him with that starry-eyed expression, Nina's instincts kicked in. Something was not right. She had tried to warn Willow gently, planting hints about Drew's past and his reputation for manipulating people's emotions. Willow, headstrong and passionately independent, had not listened. Things had worsened, and Nina's greatest fears were becoming reality. The confrontation had been simmering for weeks. Nina had heard stories about Drew's late-night meetings, his furtive phone calls, and how he'd avoided queries about his plans. Willow, ignorant to the red indicators, fell deeper under his spell. Nina had tried to remain out of it and let her daughter figure things out, but she overheard a discussion that altered everything. Drew had been discussing a transaction with someone. Nina had no idea who. That sounded sketchy and could endanger Willow. That was the final straw. She'd cornered him tonight, demanding answers, and when he dismissed her with that arrogant smirk, she'd lost it. Her vow was not merely a threat. It was a commitment. If Drew crossed the line, if he even wounded Willow's heart or placed her in danger, Nina would hold him accountable. She wasn't sure how she'd do it yet. Maybe she'd reveal his secrets, maybe she'd go further, but she was willing to do whatever it took. Meanwhile, across town, Rick was coping with his own problems. The courthouse was a jungle of paperwork, and he was stranded in the center of it. 30 days. The judge had given him 30 days to straighten out the legal labyrinth he had gotten himself into. Fortunately, it was not jail time, but it could have been. A month of probation, community service, and an overwhelming amount of paperwork. Rick had always prided himself on being astute, a lawyer who could talk his way out of any situation, but this time he'd erred. A client had betrayed him, forcing him to bear the brunt of a failed transaction. Even he found the facts hazy, but the conclusion was clear. He was grounded, bound to the city, and unable to leave until the 30-day period was up. It was humiliating, and Rick did not handle it well. He sat in his office, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, and stared at the calendar on his desk. 30 days seemed like an eternity. He'd already begun planning his next steps, but the constraints were oppressive. No travel, no big cases, just constant meetings with his probation officer and hours spent picking up trash on the side of the highway. The thought caused his skin to crawl. Rick was accustomed to wielding authority, controlling situations, and making decisions. Now he was at the mercy of a system that he had spent his entire career exploiting. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples. There had to be some way out. There was always a way out. He simply needed to discover it. Back at Nina's apartment, the standoff with Drew was heating up. She'd presented her case, her voice increasing with each charge. She had heard of the agreement that he had not told Willow about. She had noticed the way he glanced at other women when he thought no one was watching. She was aware of the lies, half-truths, and how he manipulated language to obtain what he wanted. Drew refused to refute any of it, which only fueled her rage. His silence was irritating, but it also revealed all she needed to know. He was guilty. Maybe not all of what she suspected, but enough to make her blood run cold. Do you think you can just go into her life and treat her like one of your marks? She spat. She isn't a game, Drew. Drew eventually responded, his voice low and controlled. She's my daughter. You have no idea what you are talking about, Nina. You're jumping to conclusions. But there was a glint in his eyes, a chink in his armor. Nina seized upon it. She moved closer, her finger jabbing the air. Do not lie to me. I see you, Drew. I see what you are doing. And if you think I'll stand by and let you damage her, you're insane. Her voice trembled at the last word, and she despised herself for it. She didn't want him to see her weakness, but it was present, raw and exposed. Drew was well aware that Willow was her vulnerability. The room felt smaller now, with the walls closing in as the argument progressed. Drew took a step back and raised his hands in surrender, but Nina didn't buy it. She'd seen him do that before, playing the innocent and misunderstood. She was not falling for it. Stay away from her, she warned, her voice calm and icy as ice. Or I'll make sure you regret it. Drew kept her stare for a long moment before turning and walking away without saying anything. Nina took a shuddering breath as the door snapped shut behind him. She wasn't sure if she got through to him, but she meant every word. If it came down to it, she would risk her life to protect Willow. Across town, Rick remained in his office, flipping through case files in search of a gap. His thoughts kept going to Nina. They'd been friends for years, even more than friends at times, but life had taken them in different directions. He was aware of her position with Willow, albeit she had not told him everything. Nina was a private person who always kept her cards close, but he had heard enough to realize she was in over her head. Drew was more than simply a guy. He was trouble, the kind that could bring everyone down with him. Rick wanted to help, but he was confined behind his desk, tethered by this terrible probation. 30 days. He circled the date on his calendar, pressing his pen into the paper. He'd get through it, and he'd be there for Nina whether she wanted him to or not. Nina slid into her couch, her hands shaking. The excitement was waning, leaving her exhausted. She considered phoning Willow and warning her again, but she knew it wouldn't be effective. Willow was very headstrong and caught up in whatever she believed she had with Drew. Nina's thoughts raced, repeating every detail of the confrontation. Has she talked enough? Is there too much? Would Drew listen or double down? She wasn't sure, and the uncertainty was killing her. All she could do was wait, watch, and be prepared. If Drew hurt Willow, Nina's pledge would be realized. She had no idea how far she would go, but one thing was certain. She would do whatever it needed to keep her kid safe. Rick, meanwhile, was putting together a strategy. Although probation was a setback, it was not the end. He had dealt with worse. He started calling people who owed him favors. If he couldn't leave town, he'd operate the system from here. He'd look into Drew's background and find out what he was truly up to. If there was dirt, Rick was certain he'd find it. He owed Nina so much. He couldn't just sit there and do nothing, whether it was out of guilt or for another reason. 30 days. He would make them count. Nina glanced out the window, the city lights blurring as her thoughts raced. She reflected on the life she'd constructed and the sacrifices she'd made for Willow. She had battled tooth and nail to provide a better life for her daughter, and now it felt as if everything was slipping away. Drew was an unexpected menace, and she loathed herself for it. But she was not powerless. She'd faced worse than Drew and come out victorious. She just needed to keep sharp and one step ahead. She would protect Willow at any cost. Rick hung up the phone, a slight smile on his lips. He had discovered something, a lead, a name, and a thread to pull. It wasn't much, but it was the beginning. 30 days was a long time, but it provided a chance. He'd use every second to discover Drew's secrets. For Nina, Willow, and for himself. The clock was ticking, but Rick was prepared to play the game. He played to win. Nina was interrupted by the sound of her phone buzzing on the coffee table. Willow sent a text. "I am fine, Mom. Stop worrying." Nina's heart fell. Willow had no idea what Nina had seen. But she would. Nina would make sure of that. She typed a rapid response, her fingers calm. "I love you. Always." She put the phone down and leaned back, her determination stiffening. Drew might have thought he had the upper hand, but he didn't know Nina. He had no idea what she was capable of. If he crossed her, he would find out. According to General Hospital teasers on Thursday, August 28th, Drew Kane will blackmail Michael Corinthos, while Jen Sidwell becomes enraged by Marco Rios revealing his Sonny Corinthos leverage. On Thursday's GH episode, Portia Robinson will issue a warning to Curtis Ashford in her office. As they argue about Jordan Ashford and other topics, Portia insists she will know their marriage is ended if Curtis walks out that door. Curtis may insist on leaving nevertheless because he's attempting to clean up the mess with Stella Henry, for which Portia is largely responsible. Portia allowed Drew to gain the upper hand on her, resulting in this terrible chain reaction. Stella will worry if she is truly headed to jail, as she waits in the PCPD interrogation room on Thursday's episode. Drew will be preoccupied with pursuing yet another blackmail victim. Michael will be in charge this time, as Marco has already approached Drew with a solution to his dilemma. Marco was growing angry with Sidwell's refusal to use his Sonny leverage. That is why Marco is expected to tell Drew about the judge bribery, and how, if uncovered, it will appear that Sonny bought Michael's custody victory. Drew will approach Michael and encourage him to take advantage of an opportunity. Drew appears to be attempting to coerce Michael into a custody agreement, now that Willow Tate has vowed to rejoin with him provided he gets her children back. Tracy Quartermaine will then receive a startling request for assistance, leading her to believe that the individual is in urgent need. Martin Gray may be looking for help with the Stella dilemma. Tracy may offer to do anything she can to help Stella, because they both consider her a friend. Trina Robinson will also receive updates on the dreadful Stella news, and worry about what will happen to her. Sonny will stress that Drew is going down in one way or another. Sonny will tell Alexis Davis, that son of a bitch is gonna pay. Thus he'll expect Drew's collapse sooner or later. Of course, Rocco Falconeri and Danny Morgan may discover Drew's body floating in the sea at the end of the week, which could happen sooner than expected. Meanwhile, Sidwell will become enraged when he discovers Marco went behind his back and told Drew. When Sidwell discovers Marco has just turned up their blackmail material, he will be furious. This was all part of the plan, Sidwell exclaims in Thursday's GH teaser video, scolding Marco for going against his desires. Finally, Giovanni Gio Palmieri will soften toward Dante Falconeri, allowing them to share a bonding moment after Gio had won with Brooklyn Quartermain. According to General Hospital spoilers, Gio may be on the edge of genuinely accepting and incorporating his biological parents into his life, but it will take some more effort. General Hospital teasers indicate that a preview clip has been posted for Thursday, August 28, 2025. It depicts Jen Sidwell exploding at Marco Rios. Sonny Corinthos delivers a fatal prediction. Also, what is Stella Henry's future now that she has been arrested for medical insurance fraud? Continue reading to learn about what will happen in the next episode of the ABC soap drama. Stella Henry's fate. Stella has been arrested and is also suspended from her job. Curtis Ashford had already called Alexis Davis, who agreed to take the woman's case. However, Alexis is concerned about Rick Lansing, who is being held hostage in her basement. In the interim, someone is required to go to the police station and assist Stella in Alexis' absence. While Stella's situation does not appear to be improving, I believe Martin Gray will emerge as her hero. Sonny Corinthos' devastating prediction. Sonny is about to deliver a devastating prediction. While talking with Alexis, the mob leader pledges that someone will eventually make Drew Kane pay. Drew's death is already being planned. Alexis and Nina Reeves both made public threats against him. There are also a large number of people who want the congressman to die. Meanwhile, Drew sends another threat to Michael Corinthos. The congressman responds, "You might want to jump at that if you have the chance." Tracy Quartermain also receives an unexpected visitor. Curtis Ashford's decision. General Hospital spoilers for Thursday, August 28, suggest that the preview footage also features Portia Robinson sobbing. The good doctor informs Curtis Ashford that if he walks out the door, their marriage would end. Marco Rios' defiance. Marco did not listen to his father. As a result, Marco must confront his father's intense wrath. Sidwell has a complete tantrum, and his face gets crimson as she screams at the top of his lungs. That wasn't in the plan. Has Marco destroyed Sidwell's plan to make Sonny pay? This is the first time we've seen Sidwell lash out at his son, so I'm wondering what this signifies for their father-son connection. Plus, have Marco's actions truly destroyed the plot to make Sonny pay? Is it simply not in the way that Sidwell preferred? Which narrative are you most looking forward to witnessing on Thursday, August 28, 2025? Share your opinions in the comments area below. Keep watching ABC soap operas to find out what happens next. Marco's confession sent shockwaves through the peaceful corridors of Port Charles, triggering a chain of events that no one expected. Michael remained frozen, his jaw tightening as Marco finally revealed the truth about the custody judgment, which had shattered his family and jeopardized his entire future. Marco's remarks were hesitant, almost terrified, when he admitted to bribing the judge during the custody hearing. His hands trembled and his voice cracked, yet he talked quickly, as if he'd been carrying the weight for too long and couldn't hold it inside. Michael's chest rose and fell with deep breaths, rage bubbling beneath the surface. All this time he assumed that the system had failed him due to bias or bad luck. He believed Nina's machinations, Carly's errors, or his own tactics had shifted the scales. But learning that Drew was behind this, using Marco as a pawn, was a betrayal Michael couldn't process. Drew had planned everything from the shadows. While Michael fought tooth and nail for his children,